Good morning and welcome to the 27th meeting of the Net Zero Energy and Transport Committee for 2025. Our first item of business this morning is a decision on taking items 4 and 5 in private. Item 4 is a consideration of a draft report on the Planning and Infrastructure Bill Supplementary LCM, and item 5 is consideration of the evidence we received on the Scottish Carbon Budgets Amendment Regulations 2025. Does everyone agree to take these items in private? That is agreed. Our next item of business is consideration of a negative SI, the Vehicle Emissions Trading Schemes Amendment Order 2025. This was laid under the negative procedure, which means that it will come into force unless the Parliament agrees a motion to annul it. No motion has been lodged. The Delegated Powers and Law Reform Committee has made no comment on the instrument. Before we go on to consider it, I want to make a comment on the policy note accompanying the instrument. It seemed to assume certain pre-existing technical knowledge. For example, it would have been EU values and UK values when it came to trading, without any further explanation. And I wasn't entirely clear what those mean. It's very important to me, as a parliamentarian, to understand that the policy notes are understandable to not only to me, but any member of the public who wants to understand what an instrument is doing, and indeed to our parliamentarians being asked to agree it. The policy note also uses greenhouse gas statistics from 2019, when I'm informed by SPICE that the figures from 2023 have been available since June this year. There is a reference to being carbon neutral by 2040. Maybe that this is a specific policy commitment in a particular area, but little more context was given to clarify this, and it would have been helpful and welcome to me as somebody considering it, the instrument. So, having said that, my question is, do any members have any comments? So, I therefore would invite the committee to agree that it doesn't wish to make any recommendations in relation to the instrument. Are we agreed? We are agreed. Our third item of business is consideration of a petition PE 2123 submitted by the Asthma and Lung UK Scotland. The petition asks the Scottish Parliament to urge the Scottish Government to amend the Air Quality Standard Scotland Regulations 2010. The petitioner wants new limits to be set for nitrogen dioxide and fine particulate matter in order to align with the World Health Organization's 2021 air quality targets. Now, the committee first considered the petition in April, and we agreed to write to the Scottish Government to get an update on its review of the Clear Air for Scotland 2 strategy. The Scottish Government did, in fact, respond on the 22nd of April. We considered the petition again on the 13th of May and agreed to write to stakeholders who responded to our 2023 air quality report, along with a few other interested parties, highlighting the Scottish Government's response and seeking their views. Now, Paper 2 sets some of the options for further scrutiny, which also includes writing to the government and closing the petition if we consider that appropriate. I wonder if members had any views on what's been suggested in the paper. And I'll come to Mark Ruskell first. Mark.
Thanks very much, Convener. I think the work this committee's done over a number of years now has been very good on this issue, and I think, writing back to the stakeholders who responded to our original 2023 inquiry has really kind of brought us up to date. So a bit concerned that the regulations in Scotland continue to fall behind. They're falling behind the kind of best evidence that we have of health impacts, which we know are substantial on air quality. The fact that we're not keeping pace with the EU standards in Scotland is a concern. So I note the fact the Scottish Government will look at all of this when they come to revise their air quality strategy in the next year. But I do think it's worth us writing to government now, asking them to basically adopt the WHO guidance, which are based on the best health evidence, and reflect those in the regulation. I note that SEPA, our environmental regulator, and Environmental Standards Scotland are backing that approach, as are many of the people who responded to our recent call for evidence. So I would be content, really, for us to draw a line under this petition now, to close the petition, following a letter to the government urging them to adopt these WHO limits, some of them to consider the steps to how they might do that as part of their next Clean Air for Scotland strategy.
Okay, Kevin, would you like to make a comment?
Thank you very much, Convener, and I agree with the vast bulk of what Mark has just said. But as you said earlier, we are not up to speed with all of the technicalities of implementation. So I think the letter itself should be considering adopting the WHO standards and that we should ask the Government for updates to this committee and the successor committee to see how they are progressing with the adoption of those standards. And I do agree that we should close the petition and that we should ensure that our clerking team and the future clerking team make sure that the petitioners are aware of the updates that we receive from government and not just a post on the website, which folk often miss. Thank you, Convener.
Okay. Monica, do you want to say something?
Thank you, Convener. Yeah, just to briefly add to that, I think it's been an important petition. So I want to thank the petitioner and the other stakeholders who did contribute to our scrutiny of the petition. I think it's right that we write to the Scottish Government again to get an update and to get clarity. Agree with the points that Mark Ruskell has made about the importance of keeping pace with the WHO guidelines. And I'm sure if there are opportunities, the committee will ask suitable questions in the time that we have left. But this should be an important issue for future committees in the next Parliament.
Want to say something?
I think in support of the comments made, but just to put on the record, of course, that the Government's told us that the Government's air quality strategy, Clean Air for Scotland 2, expires in July 2026, and there is a planned review already bolted into the system where all of this will be considered. So I commend the petitioners in drawing attention to this, but I think it's reasonable to say that the Government was already on the ball in considering this. So it is reasonable for us to go back to the Government and say we will continue to watch this as a committee, and our successor committee will also continue to look at this to plot a pathway through to a higher air quality standards, because why wouldn't Government and Parliament wish to do that? But I do fully take on board the points that Kevin Stewart MSP has made, that sometimes there can be technical barriers, difficulties and delays in getting to that target. It's a bit of nuance, I think, in our correspondence to Government, but based on the evidence I've got in front of me, they appear to be already on the ball and look at these things as a matter of course as part of their ongoing and planned review.
Okay. Now, let me see if I can summarise all of that, if I may. So I think what we're suggesting is that we write a letter to the Government drawing their attention to the evidence that we've received in relation to this and the recommendations from various organisations that the Government consider alignment with the World Health Organization strategy. We would also ask the Government, I guess, for their views on where we are and make sure that it's logged that the Clean Air for Scotland 2 strategy, when it needs to be reviewed, needs to be this committee and the subsequent committee needs to be kept informed of that, and that we're agreed to close the petition on that basis. Can I just, if we're happy with that, I'm not seeing anyone violently shaking their head, so I guess we're sort of there. Can I ask the committee to delegate power to me to sign off that letter to the Government in relation to the petition, and also write to the petitioner on behalf of the committee, thanking them for the fact that they brought this to our attention and what we've done? Yeah, happy. Thank you. And I think that concludes all the things that we're doing in public this morning, so we'll now move it into private session. Thank you.